We are at a very uncertain time in gaming right now. There's a lot of crazy things going on. We have some incredible news about the PlayStation 5. Developers are going crazy about it. They love it. They're talking about it nonstop. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. While big developers aren't necessarily singing the praises of the Xbox Series X, developers are coming out and saying some pretty negative things about the Xbox Series S. And this realistically shouldn't come as any surprise, as we've actually known about this for months and months and months. And it even looks like maybe Microsoft were hot and cold on their own idea. But this should give a little bit more interesting idea about what is going through Sony's mind with just doing the basic PlayStation 5 without two different power SKUs. And so this should be a pretty interesting video. A lot of people are talking about this. It's a hot topic, folks, like whether you like it or not. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really do appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel, and it means a lot to me personally. You know what? If you're asking how can you support a small channel like mine, well, you know what? The best thing you can do is simply like a video, share it out, maybe take a minute to consider subscribing. Those are all fantastic ways to achieve that. You can also hit the bell so you're notified of all the content as soon as it drops. Equally important. Yes, it is. It's very equally important. So thank you guys very much for the continued support of the channel. Shout out to all the old subscribers, new subscribers, and everybody in between. You guys are amazing. There is no channel without your support, by the way, so thank you so much. With that being said, it's an interesting time. The PlayStation 5 is a very significant leap in technology from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. And one of the great things that Sony's been able to accomplish is they've simply been able to stick by more traditional means of going console to console, generation to generation. Isn't it funny how they were able to go even a mid-gen refresh in the middle of a generation for the first time, and yet gamers didn't flip out, they didn't freak out, they didn't really, get thrown under the bus. Sony was making sure to really kind of explain things and do things the correct way. And I feel like that's always the best way to do things if you're in that situation like Sony is. Get out there, let people know, hey, this is what we're doing. It's not a big deal. You can play all of our games just fine over here. And, they make you feel good about things. And believe it or not, they actually did that with PlayStation Now as well. If you think about it, most of us don't care about game streaming. We look at that as something that these companies are trying to eventually use to replace buying hardware, because hardware is expensive to make, and that kind of sucks because I like hardware. I want to be able to always have a console. So with that being said, I don't like the whole streaming thing. But to be honest with you, Sony's been doing it for already a whole generation, but they don't really shove it down your throat. Microsoft is trying to kind of do that. It's clear they're kind of trying to position themselves to be almost like that third party where they're out there saying, hey, you know what? We've got this stuff that you're able to do. Yeah, you still got your console, sure, but try this streaming stuff. It's great. You don't even need a console. It's fantastic. So I'm always wary about that kind of stuff anyway. And then just when it comes to generations in general, I very much like generations. That makes you feel really, really good. I also feel like it's something that most people in general really do like and want to see. We want to see that they're able to accomplish this kind of stuff within a generation. We want to be able to see that we're getting our money's worth with the new generation. If I'm playing something that's playable on a PS4, on a PS5, I want to know why. And I know there's going to be some cross-gen stuff, but at the end of the day, I want mostly, and I want especially from the first party, to fully support the next generation above all else, because I feel like that's very much the most important part. With that being said, this is very, very interesting because there's a RAM issue, and it's a major issue for the Xbox Series S. Lots of devs are speaking out, not just one. I know I've talked about it in some other instances, but you have developers from Infinity Ward, id Software, a lot of big-name developers, and these are really big name developers are talking about the Xbox Series S and how this is a bad thing and how it actually impacts the PlayStation 5. So don't just think it's bad about Xbox, it's also good about PlayStation. The fact that there's so many different Xbox SKUs to mess with is actually leading developers to pick the PlayStation 5 as their lead console, their development console, and that's going to help even better because you just have to worry about the one. So obviously the Xbox Series X announcement earlier in the week was met with some positive responses and some mixed responses as well, and there's plenty of reasons for it. Not only is it, it's a good PR move from Microsoft, a $299 price point, but Microsoft have kind of put themselves in a weird situation because they've talked about power and the Xbox Series X, and now they have this less powerful thing, which is going to be the lead SKU. It's a little bit weird situation. In several key areas, such as the CPU and the velocity architecture, it's an interesting console, but then there's key areas where the console has made some significant sacrifices to be able to be sold at a lower price. So Microsoft is still kind of taking a loss on this per each sale. Most significant on the cutbacks reportedly has been to the RAM, which is split. So it's split RAM, first of all, which is also sort of a negative in and of itself. You have two pools, 8 gigabytes and 2 gigabytes respectively, and it's GPU, which has 20 compute units and 4 teraflops, compared to the Xbox Series X's 52 compute units and 12.1 teraflops. Developers in the industry have been speaking about the significant cutbacks and the drawbacks of actually being able to develop these games. For instance, Billy Kahn, who's a lead engine programmer at id Software, which you guys know who id Software are. These guys are like hardcore. Says that the Series S RAM is a major issue, and says that the much lower amount memory and the split memory banks will drastically slower speeds will prove to be problematic. Similarly, Alex Netting, principal engineer programmer at id Software, agrees with the sentiment and says that the RAM deficiencies won't be easy to compensate and will drag down the base specs that developers will have to consider, noticeably for multi-platform games. This right here is not only bad for Xbox Series X, folks, it's bad for PlayStation 5. Sasan also said, I kind of already covered that before, the technical producer at Remedy has said that he's excited for the Series S from a consumer perspective, but he sees trouble. And then David Michner, multiplayer designer at Infinity Ward, who says that the Xbox Series S lower specs will serve as a quote-unquote bottleneck. So obviously there's a lot of different things going on, okay? Why were we hearing that this thing's a bad idea in the first place all this time, okay? I just honestly feel like there's a lot of people that sort of had the idea that this thing was maybe just kind of a whim by Microsoft, and I feel like that would be kind of an accurate statement. And what do I mean by a whim? I feel like Microsoft, this is again their corporate type of situation where even though they're like, well, we're not competing, in order to actually kind of get some kind of foothold and being embarrassed by Sony again, they're like, well, let's come out with this extremely cheap version of a console and put it out there for sale and see what happens. It's realistically a Trojan horse, to say the least, but for it to have like bottleneck and for it to really impact, intentionally impact the PlayStation 5 performance of multi-platform games. Again, not only is that going to impact the PlayStation 5, but it's going to impact this huge gap in performance, quote unquote, between multi-platform games on the Series X and the PS5. So a lot of people thought that there's going to be this huge gap in the games, and Digital Foundry is going to find that out for real this time. Like, that's not going to happen because everything's getting held back by the Series S now, and that's a real problem. Not only that, but you also have the whole issue with cross-generation that could actually be holding back that as well. So this Axel Netting as well also kind of sounded off. He says, really bummed about the RAM situation. It isn't easy to compensate. He also says it's always scaled to PC, quote unquote, is nonsense. Every AAA game in the past decade or so has their assets made once so they can run on minimum specs. Increasing sample counts a bit here and there for high settings isn't what you could truly have done with more power. Minimum spec matters. So yeah, it's very, very interesting to see this. I just really think that it could be a bad situation for all of us going into the next generation, intentionally being held back. And that's really, you could blame Microsoft for that, because they're the ones that are out there doing this. They're the ones out there saying, hey, we've got this, and we're going to be doing this with the Xbox Series S, and to think that they don't know what they're doing would be crazy, because obviously they know what they're doing in terms of releasing something that could potentially hold back everything. So going to be very, very interesting to see how this all turns out, and just how, you know, these companies can work around it. Again, fully expect PlayStation 5 exclusives to far exceed any exclusives on the Xbox Series S or Xbox Series X. I mean, it's not even going to be close. This is going to be pretty much a one-sided thing, just pretty much like this generation, right? Did you find it odd that Microsoft didn't really support the Xbox One X, but with a couple of AAA releases anyway, but did you find it odd that their AAA releases, exclusives, didn't look anywhere near the quality of Sony's, even on a base 1.8 teraflop PS4? Like, to me, that says everything you need to know. But I can actually link this in the description. You can look for it down below. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on Twitter at @the_Crapgamer, Xbox Live, MOH Space Crapgamer, PSN just Crapgamer. I respond to everybody there. If you've been sending me messages, if you take the time out to send me a message, I'm going to take the time out to reply. Thank you for watching. Consider subscribing. Have a fantastic day. Please stay safe, happy, healthy. Rack 'em up, my friends. Game on. Game on. Crapgamer out.
Unscripted.